2.8 billion pounds of chocolate is consumed by Americans each year, according to Hershey's.com. This may seem like a lot, but it's actually far less than European countries consume. There are 3 types of chocolate: milk chocolate, white chocolate, and dark chocolate. My name is Jess McDaniel, and my technical presentation is on the process of making chocolate, specifically dark chocolate. Today I will be discussing exactly what goes into dark chocolate, the process, how chocolate is made, and how the process of making dark chocolate works. I chose dark chocolate because of the health benefits, which according to health benefits of dark chocolate contains fiber, iron, magnesium, copper, and potassium, also including many antioxidants, and also improves blood flow and lowers blood pressure. To get a proper basic understanding, we will first talk about the ingredients that go into dark chocolate. Please refer to slide 2 in the PowerPoint. There are 4 ingredients that go into making dark chocolate. The first is a chocolate liqueur, the second is cocoa butter, the third is cocoa powder, and then finally there's a sweetener. And the cocoa liqueur is used as the base of the chocolate. The cocoa butter is used to provide richness and assist in the structure. And the cocoa powder is used for the antioxidants found in it. And finally, the sweeteners are used to cut through the bitterness of the chocolate in its natural state. Now that we know exactly what goes into chocolate, we can get to what out of those products goes directly into dark chocolate. There are 5 steps in making dark chocolate. The first is collecting cocoa beans. The second is roasting the beans. The third is winnowing. The fourth is grinding and melanging. The fifth and final is tempering. The first process we will be talking about is collecting the cocoa beans. Please refer to slide 3 in the PowerPoint. And as you can see in the PowerPoint, when the cocoa beans are originally collected, they are actually found in pods. And if you look at the picture on the right, you can see someone cutting into the pod, and that is where you find a white sticky pulp, which actually encases the cocoa beans. Each pod contains about 30 to 45 cocoa beans, and the beans consist of 2 parts, a nibs and a papery outer shell. And the nib is actually the only part used in the process of making chocolate, and it's just the nut. Please refer to slide 4, which is the second part in the process of making chocolate, and that is roasting. Once the beans are removed from their pods, they are shipped to the U.S., and we roast them because it provides more flavor in the chocolate. They're usually roasted for about 20 to 25 minutes at 250 to 300 degrees. We can now refer to slide 5 in the process, and this is the winnowing process. And as you can see in the picture, this is just the separation of the outer papery shell we earlier discussed and the nib or the nut itself. And you can see in the picture that the shell is just falling into some discard pile and the nibs will be collected. We can now go to slide 6, which is grinding and melanging. And in this process, you can see that there are machines that grind down the beans until they're made into a chocolate paste, which is the chocolate liqueur we discussed earlier. And in this process, they will be put through twice just to ensure that everything is ground down and there are no pieces of the shell or any other things we don't want in there left. And at this point, it looks just like melted chocolate, but if you taste it, you'll actually be very disappointed because it's not had any sweeteners left in it yet. So at this point, it's just baker's chocolate. And if you've ever had it before, you'll know that it is very, very bitter. We can now refer to slide 7, which is the 5th and final step, and that is tempering. And tempering is done basically to just make sure the chocolate looks and tastes right. And if you look at the slide, you'll see that it's just basically in an inspection period. Now that we know about how chocolate is made, we can learn more specifically about each individual process. We'll now be looking deeper into each of the 5 steps, starting with the first step of collecting the beans. When the beans are collected, they are scooped away from the pods and left with the white sticky pulp around them for about 1 week in order to allow them to ferment. And we do fermentation because it kills the beans and stops them from further germinating, and it also develops flavors of the chocolate. Once the beans are fermented, they are dried in the sun, and this is done because it reduces the weight for shipping, and it also lessens the chances of molding when they are being shipped. The second step was roasting, and here's why it happens. Roasting begins because it starts the Maillard reaction, which is amino acids combining with sugars to create the flavor of chocolate. Roasting causes the water in the shells to boil, which causes the shell to puff up and makes the shell easier to remove from the nib. Step 3 was pretty basic, and it was winnowing, and that was just removing the shell from the nib. And step 4 was grinding and melanging, and this was to create the chocolate base. In grinding and melanging, a portion of the chocolate liqueur is passed through the bottom of the machine, and that is the portion that is already liquid, and it makes it through the filter, and the other portion stays on top because it's still partially the shell or not fully ground down. Due to this, we put it back through a second time to make sure that we get all pieces of the nib for cost-saving reasons. And in the second part, when whatever's left on top of the filter is basically just pieces of the shell that we weren't able to remove in the winnowing process. It is in this process when the sugar is also added to the liqueur, and in that, the sugar and the liqueur sit in a machine called a melanger for about 8 to 12 hours. Finally, the fifth and final step is tempering. To understand tempering, you need to understand that cocoa liqueur has 2 parts. The first part is small polar flavor particles, and those are there for the taste. The second part is nonpolar lipids, which is the cocoa butter, and those are in there to assist in the richness and also the structure of the chocolate. Tempering concerns itself with the structure of the crystals being formed by the cocoa butter while it cools. After this full process is complete, the chocolate is ready to hit the shelves. All in all, I discussed how dark chocolate was made. I first discussed the ingredients, which was cocoa liqueur, cocoa butter, cocoa powder, and a sweetener of some sort. And then I went on to the simple version of how it's made, and I finally talked about the chemical breakdown of the 5 steps, which again was first collecting, second roasting, third winnowing or removing the shells, fourth grinding and melanging, and fifth and final was tempering. Now that you know all the hard work that goes into making chocolate, maybe you'll enjoy your next Hershey's bar a little more.